When people talk about Missouri's Civil War, the story often feels chaotic. Raids, battles, guerrillas, invasions, retaliation. It can feel like nothing follows a clear pattern. But that chaos has a reason. Missouri didn't fight one civil war. It fought several, one after another. In this episode, we're going to step back and do something important. We're going to break Missouri's Civil War into 5 distinct phases. Not to simplify the history, but to make sense of it. Because once you understand these phases, every battle, raid, and decision we talk about later will fall into place. Wars don't always stay the same from beginning to end. In Missouri, the conflict didn't just escalate, it changed character. Political arguments became military clashes. Military clashes gave way to guerrilla warfare. Guerrilla warfare hardened communities. And by the end, Missouri experienced a full-scale invasion, followed by a long, uneasy aftermath. Each phase of Missouri's war involved different actors, different violence, and different consequences. Understanding these phases doesn't just help us organize events. It helps us understand why Missouri's experience of the Civil War was so different from anywhere else.
For deeper context, primary sources, and battlefield guides tied to this episode, visit moscivilwar.website. It's a growing archive of Missouri's Civil War, battles, people, and places, all in one place.
Missouri's Civil War didn't begin with gunfire in 1861. It began decades earlier. From the moment Missouri entered the Union, it sat at the center of America's unresolved conflicts, especially over slavery, expansion, and political power. Missouri was a compromised state, but compromise didn't mean peace. The state contained deeply divided communities, some tied culturally and economically to the South, others increasingly aligned with the North. Events like Bleeding Kansas didn't just affect Missouri, they warned it. They showed what happened when political disagreement turned violent. By the spring of 1861, Missouri was already fractured. The only thing missing was the spark. That spark came quickly. When open war began, Missouri became a prize. Whoever controlled Missouri controlled rivers, railroads, and access to the western frontier. This phase is defined by speed. Armies moved fast. Decisions mattered immediately. Control of Missouri was not yet decided. This is the period of organized battles and formal campaigns, the struggle to determine Missouri's fate. By the spring of 1862, that struggle reached its breaking point. After Pea Ridge, large Confederate armies would never again seriously threaten control of Missouri. But the war was far from over. After 1862, Missouri's war changed. This is the phase most people struggle to understand, because it doesn't look like a traditional war. Organized armies faded into the background. Guerrilla fighters, local militias, and irregular forces took center stage. Violence became personal. Retaliation followed retaliation. Civilians were no longer bystanders. They were targets, participants, and victims. This wasn't just lawlessness. It was a brutal struggle for control of communities and loyalties. In many parts of Missouri, the war stopped feeling like a war and started feeling like a feud. Then came one final gamble. In the fall of 1864, Confederate forces launched what became known as Price's Missouri Raid, the last major attempt to reclaim the state. This wasn't guerrilla warfare. This was an invasion. The goal was ambitious. This phase stands alone because it represents the last moment when Missouri's fate was openly contested by a Confederate army. When the war ended in 1865, Missouri didn't return to normal. Violence lingered. Political power shifted. Communities struggled to rebuild trust. For Missouri, Reconstruction wasn't just about rebuilding infrastructure. It was about rebuilding identity. The divisions created during the war shaped Missouri's politics, culture, and memory for generations. The war didn't end cleanly. It faded.
If this story feels unfinished, that's because it is. The Missouri in the Crossfire series goes deeper into the people, the decisions, and the chaos that reshaped Missouri during the Civil War. Find the full series at mostcivilwar.website/books.
Each of these phases builds on the last. Political tension led to open war. Open war gave way to chaos. Chaos invited invasion. And the aftermath lingered long after the fighting stopped. From here on out, every episode in this series fits somewhere within this framework. When we talk about a battle, a raid, or a person, you'll know exactly where it belongs. In the next episode, we'll step fully into Phase 1, before the fighting began, to understand how Missouri reached the breaking point. This is Missouri in the Crossfire. And this is where Missouri's war begins.